Are you searching for a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world? Do you yearn for more balance, more peace, and purpose in your life? Well, look no further than the Intuitive Revolution podcast, your trusted source for holistic insights and intuitive guidance. I'm your host, Alicia Fariselli, and I am ready to take you on a journey to inner peace and balanced well-being. Well, thank you, listeners. Welcome back to the Intuitive Revolution podcast. I have Steve Kodad today with us, and you're going to have such an amazing journey learning all about him and Feng Shui and how he got to this journey. So welcome, Steve.
Oh, thank you so much, Alicia. I'm really looking forward to talking to you and giving some good information, I hope, to your listeners. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit. You've journeyed from real estate and then you went all the way into Feng Shui, which is in the same industry, but how did you get there? What's your journey behind that?
Well, I tell everybody, Alicia, this is my fourth career change. I started off as a mathematics teacher and a basketball coach in New Jersey. And I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I got into real estate at that point. And, of course, being in real estate, you're just trying to sell your listings as fast as you can. And so I was already a certified home stager. And I knew it helped quite a bit, but not everybody was interested in paying the extra money to set things up. And so I got some information about something that I couldn't pronounce from an agent in California. Her name is Susie Miller. And so I read about it and sent away for her tapes. That's how long ago it was, tapes.
Wow.
And so I listened to the tapes for several times. And at that particular time, I got a listing in my neighborhood that they had a lot of trouble with. They had two realtors that they had gone through. They moved to Winston-Salem. This was in the Charlotte area.
Okay.
And so I took it over. And during that weekend, I according to Susie Miller, I could do vacant homes even with nothing in there. So I did what she told me to do, held an open house, and right away there was an awful lot of attraction and got an offer and all that kind of stuff. And my clients were tickled pink, of course. And so I started using it for my other listings, Alicia, and they just loved it. They loved working with it. It was very creative and intuitive. And so I just stayed with it. And several years into it, I got myself certified fully with a couple out of California by the name of Helen and James J. And my world sort of changed. I have always been sort of a teacher of some sort, I think decent one. And so I started teaching and training and giving classes for free to start with all over the North and South Carolina. So I was traveling quite a bit and just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the creativity. I enjoyed that I had all this background in real estate in the first place. So it sort of welded itself together so perfectly that I ended up going to my partner. I was at this point one of the owners of a 34 agent company, and told David Pliner, my partner, that, hey, look, I know this is going to shock you, but I'm getting out. I'm selling to you and I'm getting out, and I want to go full blast on Feng Shui. So everybody thought I was a nut, really crazy guy. And luckily my wife was very supportive of the situation. And so I got into it, and I was doing 3-day workshops all around the Southeast for several years and doing very well. And then 2008 happened, where everything sort of fell apart. And so we soon later moved into the Florida area, and I didn't do anything for about a year, and then I picked back up. And so I'm full blast at this point. I love what I do. I've written a few books on it. I've been on PBS. That was a while ago. Homes and Garden, all those kind of things. I just enjoy it. I enjoy my life. I enjoy being creative, like I said before. And that's my story.
That is amazing. Going from, because I used to be out of real estate too, and I left real estate to go into coaching. People are like, why would you leave such a lucrative career? Like, you get so burnt out of the hustle and the chase at times. And then when you have a passion, it's like, if you don't follow up with that passion, then you're not doing yourself a service. So tell our listeners what Feng Shui is.
Okay, well, again, I had to learn how to pronounce the word myself, and you pronounced it very well. A lot of people I run into do not. But Feng Shui stands for the words wind and water. And I tell people that what's really sort of neat about that is those are the two most prevalent ways of moving energy around our planet.
Hmm.
And so I think it's aptly named in a lot of ways. But it has to do with manipulating certain things, getting balance and harmony in an environment. You might see a simplistic definition of the art of placement, but that is so simple and not really very helpful. I always try to tell my students in my school that you need to have an elevator speech for what you do, and you need to be able to catch their interest right away. And I'm not sure the art of placement does it for you, but so I give them several definitions that I've used, and a very very practical one is just manipulating things so that your life is more successful and easier. And so we get in and get involved with color. We get involved with, of course, furniture and furnishings. I've had to get really, really good with paintings and all that kind of stuff because it really is a way of bringing in the balance and a harmony in a room that might be really lacking.
Hmm.
And as I'm fond of saying, Alicia, is that a lot of people on the subconscious level know there's something wrong when they walk into an environment. They can't really put their finger on it. And I think we've all been in that case. And you can imagine in real estate, if you walked in a place and you didn't feel good, you felt off and you didn't know why, you're not going to stay more than a few minutes. And therefore, of course, you're not going to get an offer for your client. So I think it's just really a very, very practical, common sense environmental science that happens to be around 4,000 years old. And anything that sticks around that long, there has to be something really to it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is it's more than just because what I was always taught with feng shui is like the placement where you put your furniture and the things like in
Mm-hmm.
certain corners are supposed to be bringing abundance or certain things like you have your money corner, you have your this corner for this for your love. Your bedroom needs to be set up a certain way to bring in the love and
Right,
intimacy that you look for. Am
right.
I on the right track, or I'm sure there's more to it than that?
Oh, you're totally right. And when I'm called into for an evaluation, the major reasons seem to be wealth, career, and certainly relationships and romance. Trying to bring somebody special into your life.
Yeah.
But there are different areas of every environment that represent some of those things, and there's ways of enhancing them to try to attract what you're trying to get, and whatever your goals might be. But you're totally right, and the idea, for example, with the bedroom, which is so pivotal in feng shui, you want to make sure that everybody gets a great night's sleep. And
Hmm.
let's face it, in our society nowadays, sometimes that's lacking a little bit. And so that's one thing. You want to make sure that a person gets a great night's sleep, stays healthy, and is able to then to go out into the world the next day and be successful. But certainly another part of it is the romantic part of it, and again the restoration of your energy at that point. So a master bedroom, for example, which is right up there as one of the most important rooms in a house, that's the breadwinner. That's the person that, if things fall apart, the whole family's going to suffer. So you really want to take an awful lot of special care for them. So you work with it with respect to balance and harmony again, but you're also looking at certain things that are giving the wrong kind of message. And so even the paintings on the wall, the colors in the room, the smell, the aroma is a very, very pivotal thing too. So you're trying to hit all of the five senses as well as you can.
Okay. So let's talk about color. What are
Sure.
some colors that would bring in a more common, peaceful sleeping environment?
Well, you can imagine bright red and um, bubblegum pink and all those things are not going to do it. So you want to make sure that you stay away from what's called more yang colors or
Okay.
yan colors, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And you want to get more to yin colors. And the yin colors are more like, like some of the blues, some of the greens, some of the browns and beiges and stuff like that. I love using grays, for example. So I want to sort of bring the energy level down as much as I can. One thing I want to mention, though, you don't want to go to an extreme, even in the master bedroom. You don't want it to come off as a cave or a really dark place. It has to be also promoting positive energy too. So you don't ever go through an extreme. You want to make sure you have looked at things and you brought in the colors that are going to take care of the 5 elements, for example, in a correct way. But you don't want to go crazy. You don't want the whole place to be, I don't know, dark brown. Okay. You don't want it to be dark blue. So you're working with making sure that the colors are correct. So the colors in the master bedroom should be more yin. And I love using things like sage greens and different shades of gray. And I'm always thinking about making sure that all of the woodworking pops. So you don't want to go so light that the woodworking sort of vanishes on you. You want to make sure that it's also very obvious. So those are the basic colors that I like to use. I mean, right away, I'm talking about sage green to people. But that color, even though I love that color, might not work real well, for example, in a kitchen. It might not work real well in a very social area. So you want to keep all those things into account. But one thing again, you don't want to go 90% a yin in a bedroom and 10% the other. You want to get more like 60-40. There's my mathematics background for you. And so I talk a lot about percentages to people.
Yeah.
That's just the way I sort of talk, I guess.
Yeah, it seems to be working really well with what you're doing. If you can cut the percentages right in that, as you said. Yeah. Awesome. So let's talk about a little bit again, bringing back some things like, so again, what are some things people could do to bring in more financial abundance into their home?
Okay, one of the tools that Feng Shui practitioners, and it doesn't even matter which school we're talking, because there's different schools. You're using what's called the Bagua. And the Bagua is an energy template or map that you lay over a foundation. It can be laid over just a room, and a lot of people do that. But it's laid over the complete foundation. And in the back left-hand corner for the school that we work with, my partners Lisa Alban and us, we work with this particular school. The back left-hand corner is the wealth corner. And to enhance wealth, there are several things you want to do. In the first place, the dominant element in the back left-hand corner is wood. And again, there are 5 elements. And wood should be a little more dominant there. Again, not an extreme, but it should be more dominant. And so anything that's growing vertical, like a plant or something, also sort of represents the idea of your wealth actually increasing. You don't want it to flatline. You want it to be increasing, going upward. So you use plants, you use particular colors that enhance the elements. But again, I don't want to go crazy with wood. I want to make sure that there is a balance. And so that's a tricky part for a Feng Shui practitioner, where you're trying to get the balance of the 5 elements, because you want to have a little bit of all 5 elements in every room. And some of them have an adverse relationship with, for example, wood. That would be metal. So we try to eliminate the metal somewhat, maybe not even put it in there at all because of the situation. So you find the right corner, you use the map, and then you enhance it by bringing in the cures. And the cures, again, can be colors, objects, shapes.
Okay, that's very, very fascinating. I never really thought about metal being clashing with the wood and the different elements and not being able to put those together. But you see a lot of decor today, has wood and metal together. Is that a bad idea?
It just depends where in the house, Alicia. It's not necessarily that way. There are a couple of areas of the house that are dominant metal. And so, again, that's going to be maybe 40% of what's going on in there in the first place. And there are particular elements that enhance metal. So you want to bring them in also. But for example, back to the wood, the way most practitioners learn this is these little memory things, and it goes like this: that metal cuts wood, and that's the easiest way to remember it. Metal cuts wood. So I want to sort of stay away from that if I need to make sure that the wood is very, very present. Now, in the front right-hand corner of a house is dominant metal. And again, I wouldn't mind having a little wood in there, but it's really not as important as I get my 40% or so of metal in there.
Yeah. So what if, as I say, a person moved into an apartment or moved into their new home and there's such bad energy in there? What are some things that they can immediately do to start to put in some more positive energy?
Well, one of the biggest problems for everybody, no matter if you're living in a residential or an apartment or whatever condo, is that you're not really enticing energy into the house. And so one of the things that I really found fascinating about Feng Shui, and that I knew was true when I was in real estate, is that the outside was really pivotal to getting traffic. And the way I look at it and the way I teach it is that if you get traffic, you get human interest, you're also getting the energy interest too at the same time. So you need to attract energy into the place. And so if you're talking about at the front door, which is really the most pivotal place for bringing in this new energy every day, is that you want to really set it up nicely. No clutter, a beautiful front door, maybe the hardware really shiny. And I actually like to quite often put plants that frame the door too, with particular colors that attract attention from the street. And if I'm not doing that, then, why would the energy come down the street and come to my house? It's, that's the way I look at it. So I want to entice people. So, when I'm helping a realtor do an open house, for example, I want to make sure that 24/7 people know about this open house for at least a week. And so I want them to keep all their lights on during the night if possible, or at least a lot of them. I want to make sure that during the daylight, there's so much beautiful color up front that, again, it entices you to turn and look and take it in. But at the same time, it's also enticing the energy or the chi that I really need badly to come in and move in a particular way.
Yeah. So there are ways, and I, kind of teach my clients on a different level of when you have someone who has really bad negative energy come into your home. There are
Right.
ways spiritually to rid that. How would
Right.
you protect that on a feng shui level?
That's very interesting because, one thing I like having them do when anybody moves into a new house, or even if they're selling, is they should do a space clearing. And a lot of people don't, they have the wrong idea of what that all is. So a space clearing basically gets rid of the bad, the stagnant energy,
Mm-hmm.
and increases the positive. And so going back to the real estate terms, since you were in real estate, you understand that the personality of the person's living there, we want to sort of take it away a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't want them to think when they walk in there, hey, look, I can't see myself in this house. This is their house. They've got all their photos up there, and it's sort of hard for them to buy in.
Yeah.
So the idea, we call it predecessor energy. We try to take away the predecessor energy as much as we can. And a space clearing can do that very nicely. And a space clearing can be done so many different ways. You can pick up a lot of books and they go about it a little differently. I've even come up with a way to try to get around people's being reticent about the whole thing. And so I try to get them to do 4 things that make sense to them, or common sense. And it sort of has the same kind of thing. I want them to declutter,
Mm-hmm.
which of course most people think of when they think of Feng Shui. I want them to detail, which means to make sure everything works properly. Okay. And then the next one is to depersonalize, which again, to me, is getting rid of predecessor energy. And then the last one is a deep cleaning, which most people never do. And, I kiddingly tell people, this might be the first and last time you've ever seen behind your refrigerator. So you want to get back there and clean it nicely. And if you do your job, just doing what I call the 4 big Ds, you really a long way now to sell your house or to change the atmosphere if you're going to stay there. Take the week to really work at it. And all of a sudden, it's going to smell, of course, a lot better. It's going to feel a lot better. And then in real estate terms, you have that final walkthrough. The final walkthrough can be scary for people sometimes. So if they've done the 4 big Ds, let's face it, they're way ahead of everybody else on the street. And the final walkthrough will be a breeze because they've done everything.
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Yeah. I find when people say they're going to declutter, it's so hard for people too, because we get so attached to our physical objects. And
right.
So what kind of tips do you have for people who are like, I really want to declutter, but I don't want to get rid of anything? Which I know is, how would you approach that situation?
Yeah, I've had to approach it a few times. And, basically I said, okay, here's what we're going to have to do. You're going to have to right away start packing. Okay. And this right away sort of generates the idea, I am moving. I am definitely moving. So they're not procrastinating. And then let's go ahead and move it to a storage shed. Okay. If you can't make that decision now, you're going to have to make it sooner or later. And, I'm sure you have moved a few times and I have moved a few times. And it's sort of a freeing situation when you get rid of some of this stuff. When we moved from the Charlotte, North Carolina area down here to the Sarasota area, it was just freeing to get rid of some of these things. My wife and I both read like crazy. So we had all these books. And then we found Kindle. And so Kindle to me is just an amazing tool. But, I still have certainly a fair number of hardcover books, but I nowhere near where I don't know how many times, Alicia, that I went to the library, the local library, and gave them books. They're probably wondering if I had broken into a bookstore or something. But it's such a freeing situation when you do that. But anyway, back to what you had asked, the storage shed, it needs to be used. You're going to have to then rent the situation and you're going to move it later. And in some cases, these people just leave it there, of course,
Yep.
They never move it. And then, maybe they expire in 15 years and then their relatives have to take care of all that stuff in the storage shed. But, a lot of people, as you said, are sort of hoarders. And it's amazing how little of the stuff that you own and I own is really that important. But it's hard to get through to some people.
It is very hard. And I always tell, especially when I'm working with clients on a different level, it's like, you want something new to come into your life, then you have to get rid of something. So the first thing to do is start clearing out your car, start clearing out your home, clear out a closet or a drawer.
Beautiful.
And it's just start something small and just keep going. I know myself, like when I start cleaning out, it's like, oh, everything gets cleaned out. I try to do that a couple times a year, and then I'll go back there and like, I really don't need this. I don't care how much I spend on it. I really don't need it. But if I let this go, then something new can come into my life that's completely unexpected and much more a bigger blessing to me.
See, that is amazing because I use the same words. In Feng Shui, there's a lot of symbolism. And the idea is if you clear space out of your home or whatever, you have now opened it up to new opportunity to come into your life.
Yeah.
And, I try to bring up the example of people who have way, way too big of a house, for example. They don't have it cluttered with this. So energy moves very easily through their home. They've got a lot of room to create new opportunity to come in. There's a reason why in a lot of cases they stay affluent, but I think that is one of the reasons they have opportunity for this stuff to come into their lives, new possibilities that a lot of us are missing, or not seeing coming our way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought about it that way. So he's giving you permission to go buy a bigger house.
Yeah.
Or get rid of everything.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now.
So for the listeners that are kind of confused about the science behind feng shui. Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you give me some examples of how science plays out with it?
Oh, love to. That's one of the reasons why when I started, when I and Lisa Alban started our school, I wanted to bring in research, okay, and studies. And I think we're one of the few schools that do this. So there's an awful lot of reasons why a lot of this works, and it is common sense. But feng shui sort of started thousands of years ago, taking into account the topology, where to put their home. But where they put their home, they wanted to make sure that they felt as safe and as secure as possible. And you can imagine thousands of years ago, you were worried about a lot of things. You were worried about other human beings. So the idea started off what we call the classic armchair, where you would put your house maybe a third of the way up a mountain with your back to the mountain, not to the top. And I'll get to that why, but a third, maybe halfway up the mountain. So you had your back protected. And at the same time, you were looking for a site that had protection on the left and the right too, possibly a grove of trees or smaller hills. That's sort of where your armrests are. And at the same time, you wanted to be able to see for miles straight ahead, maybe 180 degrees if possible. So you could have a warning if somebody was coming your way. You had a really good idea of the environment. You had real control of the situation. So if you could see somebody was coming, let's say an army, bandits, whatever, you had the chance now to be able to run, hide, or get your weapons out or whatever. So you had a chance to survive. So, when you think about when you go into a restaurant, not that you're probably going to have anything bad happen to you, you might have the opportunity to pick where you're going to sit. And I'm sure you're like one of 90% are going to pick on the outside in the booths instead of in the middle of the place, because that way you feel like you're more protected. You have more control of the environment. You can see everybody, you have a chance to react a little bit faster. So it's basically baked into the way we operate. If you think of the gunslinger in the West, I promise you, he or she, when they came into the saloon, they would go to the back and they would sit like that so they could have control of the saloon. So if somebody was going to come in and maybe try to shoot them, they were in control. My son, who's still in Charlotte, he's a policeman. And so when we would get and go to lunch, whether he had his uniform on or not, he would always pick that situation so that he could see who was coming in the door of the restaurant. Yeah. And he had his back protected. He had no idea why he was doing it other than it felt right. And even to this day, Alicia, I don't think he can pronounce feng shui correctly.
He doesn't need to. His dad can. Yeah, that's very fascinating. I never really thought about it. I know I've seen people and family members. My husband sometimes is wants to sit facing as a protective mode. But I think it's just kind of taught down, and that makes sense with being a police officer, that he would have that automatic guard, have a guard up for that. But that's very fascinating how we normally just almost like we're not really conditioned, but we're just our psychological subconscious goes in protection mode everywhere that we are, because that's what it's really for.
That's right. There's no saber-toothed tigers out there anymore or stuff like that. And most of us in our society, we don't have to worry about being chased down by a bear or whatever. But, that is just the way we are wired. And we haven't changed really from the people that were on the savannah running around trying to collect a meal to where we are right now. We've never gotten rid of that. We want to feel first safe and secure. And to me, that's the first thing that has to happen in any environment. You have to do that. And that's one of the first things that I want to do. And if I get it that way, then they're going to be more comfortable. Yeah. If they're more comfortable, then they're going to be able to focus and work on whatever is important. And if they do that, then they're going to get better and better, and they're going to be more successful. It's just a real domino effect, but you've got to start off making sure that everybody feels okay, or at least in the environment.
Yeah.
So it's the same with the office. It's the same there too. I know you work with businesses and offices, and those folks need to feel safe and secure. There was a time that I was in a cubicle, and I still remember those days, and not fondly actually.
Right.
But I worked for AT. As I said, I had four career changes. I worked for AT&T for 5 years as a. They tried to turn me into a programmer, and then I ended up teaching different types of computer stuff. But I remember being in that cubicle, and especially at the end when the bell system was being broken up, I tell you, I was just bored to tears. And here I have my back to the entrance to the cubicle, and if the boss walks by and I'm dozing off, I'm in trouble. so so the idea, for example, in Feng Shui, you should have a little mirror so you can see what's behind you at all times.
Ah,
So, I'm just letting all your listeners know, get those little mirrors and put them in your cubicles, and so you know where the boss is.
yeah, you can feng shui your cubicle.
Oh yeah. Oh, most definitely. I've loved helping people do that. Their
Yeah.
office or their cubicle or their car.
Oh, you tell us about that.
Well, again, you use the template, the bagua, and the bagua can be laid over anything, including a boat, a car, or whatever. And so, depending on what's important to you, you start that way. And so, there's certainly a way to get into the car, and you can align it with the bagua that way if you'd like to, and it gives you where the wealth corner is. It gives you where relationship corner, and so forth and so forth. Certainly, you want to unclutter the car, and a lot of our cars are not very uncluttered.
Especially on the road
But
a lot.
yeah, probably. But but certainly, all of those things, including aroma, and all those things can be brought into play in a car to make it more energizing and more supporting, and all those kind of things. So, as you said, a lot of people do spend a lot of time in their car. Thank God I don't do that anymore. But at one time, as a real estate agent, of course, I was running up an awful lot of thousands of miles, running people around, and in some cases, just wasting my time.
Yeah, a lot of those cases. I probably know. Yeah. So if you have road rage and you're having issues with driving a long distance, then think about feng shuiing your car because you might calm that
Yeah.
down a little bit and
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Throw some lavender in the front window,
Did you need in Florida? No. Yeah. So tell me about your school for feng shui. Tell us more about it. So if people wanted to sign up for that, what be they expecting?
Great. It's called the Intrinsic School of Feng Shui. That is the website, intrinsicSchoolofFengShui.com.
Okay.
And again, my partner is Lisa Alban, and Lisa and I met in not a strange way, but she was having some difficulty selling her home in St. Pete, and so she called in the cavalry. That's what I consider myself. I'm like the last resort. And so I came and I met her, and I helped her set up the situation. I spent several hours with her. She took a lot of notes. She spent the whole weekend putting the thing together, and it sold right away. Okay. And so we became friends. And at this point, she was an executive for the Home Shopping Network.
Okay.
And so she was having her he had already been born. So she had her second child, and she wanted to meet with me. And I wasn't sure what she wanted to talk about. So we met in Palmetto at a McDonald's, and one thing led to another, and we decided she wasn't going back to corporate. She was very, very interested in feng shui and energy work. And so we put together a school over 5 years ago. And so the whole idea is that to make it so different is that, again, I wanted to bring in research. So when you run into somebody who really was not sure about the idea, you could tell them, hey, look, Sunlight, for example, is pivotal to your health. Feng Shui makes sure you bring sunlight into an environment. Plants are very important to your health and your mental well-being. All these things were important, and they were important to her too. So, like I said, we got together 5 years ago, put it together. Our first class was held at the, oh boy, I know you know this place, and I'm going to try to think of it, the Sunken Gardens. Okay, you know Sunken Gardens.
Sunken Gardens, yes, in St. Petersburg. Mm-hmm.
So we held our first live class there at Sunken Gardens about 4.5 years ago. And we had a real nice turnout, and that's how it got started. It's basically more now online. That COVID sort of slowed a lot of things down. I love talking live. I actually have a class coming up in October for the Ringling School of Art and Design that I'm really looking forward to, because at least I can see some
such a beautiful, beautiful place. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's live, which was amazing to me. So we don't do an awful lot of live anymore, but we have a sort of self-paced course now where we also jump in anytime they have a problem. And if we need to Zoom with them, answer the questions by phone or email, we're there. But it's a very, very intense class course, and we're really very proud of it. And again, it's a little different because we both have different interests. I am more, she likes to kid about this, but I'm more of the yang or the yang person. I do the common sense, practical stuff. Okay. She's more of the yin person, the person who's really more into other things that, she loves to talk about the I Ching, which is a way of bringing in information. And she loves to do dowsing and stuff like that. So there's an awful lot here that we bring together. It's so unusual. And so we're very proud of the school. And, I'd love to have people contact us and see, if you'd like to talk to us. But yeah, we're really, really pleased about it.
Awesome. So guys, if you're interested in learning anything about it, definitely go to the website, reach out to him. So tell me, what is the one thing you want the listeners to take away and go do today?
Well, to me, the first thing you should always do is to really go the extra mile before you buy a house or move into an apartment or whatever. A Feng Shui practitioner, and I'm not asking you to call just me, but a Feng Shui practitioner can actually point out some things that will amaze you. Okay. Mm. For example, you maybe have heard of the term poison arrows. Poison arrows are sharp angles to rooms or off of furniture. They can affect you. And again, it's been proven. So they will actually be able to come across an awful lot of things that you've never thought about. I promise you. You'll be looking at a lot of things that will affect you the rest of your life. And so Feng Shui has really come into this century with a lot of changes. We now look at a lot of different things. For example, when I do an evaluation, I do an electrical magnetic field evaluation with my monitor. Okay. I'm checking out EMF and making sure that it's not behind your bed. Okay. So there's an awful lot more to it than some folks can understand. But there's a lot of ways that it can affect your health if you don't look into it. So I guess that's the way I'd like to end with that.
Yeah. So go learn about it and use those steps. Well, thank you, Steve, so much. This has been very fascinating to learn all the different concepts. I've learned a ton about Feng Shui.
Thank you.
I knew very little about it. And so now I feel, I'm definitely more confident in what it is. And
good.
So I definitely appreciate you coming on here and sharing all your information.
I know. I really appreciate it too. It's been great.
Yeah. All his contact information will be in the show notes. So feel free to please reach out to Steve.